Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
The acknowledgement again, we're a team, right? And sometimes I can't cope and you take over. And
sometimes Dad's just got to throw the frisbee with the kids.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm the author of 6 books about how to make your family happier and the webinar host of, I've done so many webinars lately about lightening the lockdown load because half the country is currently in lockdown. We're going to talk a bit about that today. And I'm the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. Here with Kylie. Hey, Kylie, mum to our 6 kids. And we are talking I'll Do Better Tomorrow as we finally crash into the weekend. If you're doing lockdown right now, probably doesn't feel nearly as exciting for the weekend to be here as it does for those of us who are fortunate enough to be in states where we are not experiencing these stay-at-home orders, these curfews, we're going to lock the parks and keep everybody away from everybody. We are so sorry for those of you who are going through it, and we really hope that it ends soon. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with I'll Do Better Tomorrow, if you've just found our podcast, every Friday, Kylie and I get, what word would you use, honey? Get very serious about everything that's happened this week.
we get reflective.
Oh, good one. I like that. I was going to say intentional, but I thought, no, we can do better, and you just did. We get reflective about the week that was. How can we be better parents tomorrow? Maybe we've had some wins. Maybe we've made some mistakes. But our goal is to inspire you with our very best efforts to also try to be better tomorrow, either by doing the stuff that we recommend or just reflecting and being introspective yourself.
Well, I'm really grateful for tomorrow's.
Yes.
Because my yesterdays weren't particularly good this week.
Okay, so we'll start with your negative Nelly, I'll do better tomorrow, and then we'll move on to, I think I've got some cool stuff to talk about. So let's dive into it. Why do you need to do better tomorrow? What happened this week? Actually, I know what happened this week. We haven't talked about this in any detail in advance, but I think based on what you've said that I know what you're going to say.
Let's just say there's a cycle that all women go through, and
it affects people differently, though.
It does. It does. And sometimes you get through it without any hassles, and other times it's a big mess. And this week was a really big mess.
Can I just, without sounding patronising or condescending or anything like that, can I just say this week has been really hard for you and therefore for the whole family? It's been a tough week. How much do you want to go into this?
Look, the first thing I'm going to say is find yourself a good hormone doctor. If you are struggling in this area, every 4 weeks, really important to go and find somebody who can help. I have found someone who can help. I just haven't followed her instructions.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Finding the doctor's one thing, doing what the doctor says is another thing.
You get a little bit complacent. We've had about nearly 12 months of bliss since I found her. And I guess I've just got a little bit complacent and stopped doing a few of the things that she has suggested. And we're really seeing the repercussions of that over the last few months.
It's been a rough week. I might actually just mention something about that hormone doctor. So I've got a PhD in psychology. I'm a doctor, but in psychology. I don't know about the medical stuff. I certainly don't know anything about the hormone issue that you've been dealing with. What I do know, though, is that PMS affects different people in different ways. And some people, like you said, they sail through. For other people, it's one crazy, I was going to say period, but that's got 2 meanings right there. One very crazy and challenging time.
Insert eye roll.
I'm so sorry.
Seriously.
Anyway, so it's a really rough time. And about a year ago, we went through a situation with you for maybe 4 or 5 months in a row where when your cycle hit, you went from being the Kylie that everyone knows and loves, the absolutely insatiably delightful human being that we know and love, to someone that I didn't recognize. You didn't even recognize you, and you hated who you were. And it's like, how do you describe it? Like, you knew what you were doing and you knew that it was all wrong. Irrational, but it didn't stop you. It was chaos.
It was.
So we found this amazing doctor who, so some doctors will actually say there's no such thing as PMS or anything to do with menstrual hormones and all that sort of stuff.
And that's what I dealt with for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And when I found this doctor, for her to literally say, do you know why you feel the way you do? I can tell you. She had all of these answers and
solutions.
And solutions. And we've had a really, really good run with it until the last few months. So I'm back on the bandwagon and I'm doing everything she told me to do.
Taking every single supplement.
because
altering the diet.
It really, really has impacted our family over the last little while. And so this last week it's been hard. It's been really, really hard. And the challenge that we have is, when I say we, I'm making assumptions that there are lots of other women out there like me.
Okay.
I'm not alone.
Well, you've had enough conversations with women who can confirm that you're not on your own here.
But what happens when you start to feel a little bit low is often you feel like there's a bit of a dark cloud over your head, and then you start thinking all of these irrational, stinking thinking thoughts.
Yeah.
And it just compounds on top of each other over and over again until what started off is just, I'm feeling a little bit flat, to now I'm either raging or I'm so incredibly sad that it feels overwhelming. And that's probably the biggest challenge I've had this week, is just being piled up with all of this stinking thinking, because I was already feeling low, and then it started to rain, and all of those things, and the compound effect of having negative thought after negative thought after negative thought, leaving me feeling just so completely irrational. And that's what it came down to, just feeling completely irrational and knowing that all of those thoughts are irrational. Well, that's the tricky part.
We talk all the time.
Knowing
thoughts are thoughts, not facts.
And I know that they're irrational, but when you're in that space, it's so hard to get over. So my take home, because it's not all about...
It's not about Kylie's menstrual cycle. Thank goodness for
was
that.
Just the acknowledgement that it was a really, really hard week this week. And I got to Tuesday and I just thought, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do life right now. I'm not being the person I want to be, and I just need to get everybody outside, because if we stay here, I'm probably going to hurt someone, or maybe worse. I don't know. And so I just said, we're going to the park.
Can I just restate what you said? Because you didn't say we're going to the park. You said, get in the car, we're going to the park.
I did. I literally did.
Everyone was like, okay. The kids were terrified.
And you said, I might come too, just to make sure everybody's safe. So we took the dog, and the dog got to have a walk.
And the kids. We took the kids too.
And the kids came along, and they got to play Frisbee with you. I didn't mix in with that space.
No, you completely you left. You took the dog and off you went.
But it gave me the time that I needed to kind of come back and be half human. And the kids had an absolute ball.
Yeah.
And, the acknowledgement, again, we're a team, right? And sometimes I can't cope and you take over. And
sometimes Dad's just got to throw the Frisbee with the kids.
And other times it's you. And it's so good to know that we've got each other.
So the take-home message is this. Number one, menstrual stuff really does happen and it can be really hard. And number two, even when that's happening, in fact, because that's happening, you dug deep, found something extra and made sure that everybody was okay, even though it was the last thing you wanted to do. You didn't really want to go to the park. You didn't want to go to the park with everybody else, but you made it happen. So that's what I'm sort of taking as the take-home message.
Yeah, well, as a result, everyone actually had a great afternoon, whereas if we had have stayed at home, I would have just been at everybody because you're in my space and I'm not coping.
And we'd already had a few days of that. No, it was rough, I'm just saying, which was
so I promise I will be better tomorrow.
I'm so pleased.
At least until
that.
next month.
Just do the dietary stuff, take the supplements. In just a sec, we're going to find out how what insights I've had.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And since I've shared my
had confession
doozy
time.
of a week,
Yes.
You better have a good story.
I don't know if I've got a great story because you've been struggling and my workload has been overwhelming. It's
well, let's just say it's all your fault then.
Right. It's been a tough week, but there's been some really strong positives as well. So this week I finished reading a book series to a couple of the kids. It's called The Keepers by Leanne Tanner. And Leanne Tanner is an Australian author. It's a 3-book series about Goldie Roth and Toadspit. And they end up being keepers in this museum because they're thieves and they live in this utopia that's not a utopia at all. It's really a dystopia. And it is just an extraordinarily good story. So it's a 3-book series from this Australian author. Leanne Tanner, the keepers. If you've got children between, I'd say 8 and 13, perfect for them. And the kids just loved it. So that was a bright spot there. And just the joy of laying on the bed and reading to the children and trying to stay awake while you do it, of course, because that's been tough for me this week. But that was a really big win. The other really exciting thing is that we've now moved on to Narnia. I'm reading The Magician's Nephew. We're starting the entire Narnia series as of now. Been through this one a few times with the kids, but they love it, and we're going to do it again. But more than anything, I think I actually want to highlight. Now, this was you and I together. Sometimes you kind of look at each other and just say, we've got to do something. And it's got to not involve staring at the TV or looking at a screen or, I don't know, letting everyone just do their own thing. We need to be together and do something. And one night this week, when nothing was going right, I was in a pretty ordinary mood. You were obviously not doing particularly well. I looked at you and just said, we've got to get out of the house. I have no idea what we can do, but we've got to get out of the house. And you said, let's put the scooters and the bikes in the back of the car and take the kids on a little adventure. Without hesitation, I'm like, let's do it. Within 5 minutes, the scooters and the bikes were in the back of the car. The kids were in the car. We drove into town. And again, fortunately, because we're not in a lockdown situation, we're able to have this additional flexibility. But even in a lockdown situation, you can still do this. We got in the car, drove into town, and we rode bikes and scooters from the South Bank area across the Goodwill Bridge into the Brisbane Botanic Gardens and then back again. I think we were gone for, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. The kids stopped at a park. It was dark. It was 8 p.m. And they just sort of played on the park for half an hour, and we sat there and got to talk. And golly, it felt good.
So you've been giving me a hard time about how bad my week is, but I just facilitated 2 amazing family outings in spite of it all.
If I believed in praise and giving gold stars, you'd get both of them right now. But I think the central thing here is whether you're in a lockdown state or not, sometimes you know that everybody needs oxygen. Everybody needs nature. Everybody needs outside. And even in states where lockdowns have been instituted, there are still ways that you can legally have that experience as a family. And my goodness, the intentionality around it required so much effort and focus, but it changed the feeling in the family in such a significant way for that afternoon or that evening. Such an important thing to do. So that's my take-home message. However you can, legally, get out, spend time with the kids, be intentional, as simple as throwing the scooters in the back of the car and going down to the local park or riding on a nearby bike path. Whatever it is that you can do, do it.
And follow the doctor's advice.
Well, I'm a doctor. Are you saying follow my advice? You're still on the hormone doctor, aren't you? Hey, we really hope that this has been a helpful I'll Do Better Tomorrow. We hope that the intention with which we try to raise our family rubs off on you, and that the ideas that we share are helpful in you being more intentional in the way that you raise your family. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. Can I just give a little plug for next week? Next week's podcast, I think you're going to absolutely dead set, fair income, love. On Monday, we're going to be chatting about the routine that I follow to be the best dad that I can, and the routine that Kylie follows when she's not premenstrual to be the best mum that she can. Don't cancel me for that. Don't come at me. Kylie's smiling at me. It was okay. It was just a joke between Kylie and I. We're also going to talk about the best toys to buy your kids and why some toys are great and some toys are not. And with Father's Day so close now, we're going to have a conversation with a guy who is behind one of the biggest fatherhood initiatives in the world. That's all coming up on the Happy Families podcast next week. If you'd like more info about making your family happier right now, please check out our Happy Families memberships. Premium content, low price, loads and loads of helpful ways to make your family happier. It's all in the Happy Families membership. You can find the details at happyfamilies.com.au. And have a great weekend.